since I held you in my arms. You're leaving, let's break even. Two wrongs don't make it right, but let's make it tonight. There's a shiny new car outside and tickets for a plane. There's a look in your eyes that says I'm lonely. We're only two wrongs, only two wrongs. It's been too long since I held you in my arms. You're leaving, let's break even. Two wrongs don't make it right, but let's make it tonight. Take a look in these eyes of mine, they're open all night long. Maybe all of the laughs were just a cover. I need a lover. You've been feeling burned, you want something returned, but the big moon up above can't return your love. Two wrongs, only two wrongs. It's been too long. For me, I'm just plain lonely. Two wrongs don't make it right, but let's make it tonight.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to It Matters Radio Spoken Word Guest Show. I'm Monica Brinkman, and I'll be your host for this evening. And if you've watched any of our spoken word guest shows and even some of our musical shows, you already know Kenneth Ween. And
Hi, folks.
hello, Ken. Ken, I noticed there's a very, very attractive gentleman with us this evening.
You mean beside me?
Oh, well, yeah. Well, that goes for saying. That goes without saying, I should
Hey, I
say.
want to introduce you, Monica, and wonderful audience. This gentleman is Ken McGorry, and Ken is a writer and musician. But today we're going to be talking about his book. It's set on Long Island, so immediately those people who know me know I lived on Long Island all those years. So that immediately attracted me. It's a crime story, and everybody knows that I love crime stories. And best of all, it's a ghost story.
Ooh.
And now,
You have
if
my
you get a good
interest.
ghost story, you got me. And this one's called Ghost Hampton. And Ken, I looked on for your other books, but this is the first one published, I think.
Yes,
Now,
sir.
But you did have a career in writing informational nonfiction material. You edited a magazine.
Yeah.
Why don't you start up by telling the audience a little about that, because I think it's fascinating, your progression of career.
Yeah, I got fairly well known for that. That's film and television post-production, and that also includes audio, and special effects and visual effects and animation. And we covered and still cover all of that. I phased out a few years ago, finally. I started in the late 80s. I was an editor. I was the editor for a while. And I phased out finally to just focus on Ghost Hampton. So here it is.
Yeah. Now, one of the things I got to tell you, after I read this book, I said, gee, this is a neat book, and I want to see it on film. So I took the liberty of contacting a friend of mine who has a movie production company called American Picture House. They have the rights to one of my novels, but he grew up on Long Island, and he asked me to get a copy of this for him. So later on in the week, I'm going to get back to you with an address and ask you to send a copy out, because this folks, read the book first so that then you can really enjoy the movie, because it's going to be a movie.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. One thing about that is I had written, working in the sort of covering the film production world, I wound up writing a number of scripts and movie treatments and such, and they're really all present tense. Right. So when I got to my first book and now Ghost Hampton, I just went present tense with that. And people who were not used to that would say, oh, I felt like I was watching your book. And I was like, yeah, that's great. It sounded wonderful to hear, somebody say that. But now you see it a lot. I'm finishing up The Girl on the Train, Paula Hawkins. It's set in England. It's going to come out as a movie with Emily Blunt.
Right.
Friday the 7th, I think it is. And that's, if you read that, it's pretty much all present tense except for the flashbacks.
Right.
Which is...
So, yeah. Now, this is set in folks, in the Hamptons. And I don't know, maybe we should tell people, because our audience is from all over the place. We have listeners in Australia and South Africa, not just here in the States, and certainly not just on Long Island. So tell people a little about the Hamptons.
It's Long Island's East End. Long Island sticks out of Manhattan. It's also got Brooklyn involved and Queens, but they are part of New York City. Then there are two suburban counties on Long Island. Out east, as it sort of sticks out under Connecticut, is the tail of a fish, with a fish tail with a north fork and a south fork to it. The Hamptons involve that south fork on the Atlantic, for the most part. And there's also a barrier island stretching through a lot of it. So there's a bay, and different Hamptons are on the bay, and some of them are on the ocean. So they're kind of clustered around out there about 80 miles east of Manhattan.
Yeah, and when I lived on Long Island, when I first got there, the Hamptons, Southampton was already pretty exclusive. But most of the Hamptons and Montauk, which is the very end of the island, hadn't been all that developed. So you pick that story up, and you have a lawyer who is very much into developing what has now become a very interesting part of the world, because you have incredible wealth there. You have people, jumping on their helicopters and their small planes and flying from Manhattan out to the end of Long Island and land, incredible wealth. And then you have people whose families go back generations. And actually, many of them were digging still go out and dig in the muck to get clams and things like that. So it's a
Potatoes, well,
potatoes, yeah.
it's a lot, no, and then there are vineyards.
Yeah.
Also,
So anyway, tell us about this character that decides he's going to get hold of some of that money, that's that development money.
yeah, he was a local throughout childhood. Growing up out there, somebody has to, and he did go to college and then law school and NYU Law, and came back to, it's a fictional guy, but he came back to fictionalized Bridgehampton and started his law practice. And soon enough, he realized that the money was in flipping properties, developing old properties and turning them, into something that could be built up and sold for more, flipping. And that nowadays, or at least since the 90s, we've called that McMansions. So he would see a field of potatoes, a potato field, and envision a field of McMansions. Even though it was somewhere in the Hamptons, but even if it wasn't anywhere near the beach. The beach is, really expensive now, and that's where our Bill Holes are, and our other celebrities, and Jerry Seinfeld, those people of that level of success are on the beach, and then the rest of us are kind of cringing off in the netherworld. But
that's what in the summertime, you can't get close to the beach or downtowns very well. But in the winter, things quiet down a bit, and you can have some very interesting things still going on out there. For example, this fellow, his name's Lyle, and he, in addition to flipping houses, he also tends to flip wives. And he also does a lot of flipping whiskey, very quality whiskey. And then his life takes a very, very sudden turn. And that turn, tell us about it. We don't want to give too many spoilers, but this is really the beginning of the book.
Yeah, it is. It's what in filmmaking they call I think they call the inciting incident. The thing that put the wheels in motion was an accident, also known as a car crash, that he was involved in, and he's held responsible for a number of reasons. Basically, because he has such a bad reputation in this fictionalized Bridgehampton as a greedy lawyer. And so he's got this bad reputation, and he entered the big intersection in Bridgehampton. It's not that big, but it's interesting. It's just one light, and it has a large and very dramatic granite monument to those who lost their lives in wars since the War of 1812. So it's a four-sided monument. That's what Lyle crashed into in his Humvee.
Oh no!
Which was it was already at that point in time made by a company that had gone out of business. So he's in that. It was one of his middle-aged crazy decisions. This Hummer. And he was swerving away from an elderly lady who everybody in town knew. And I'm not talking about the summer Bridgehampton, where there could be as many as 30,000 summer people. But as they say, after Tumbleweed Tuesday, the off-season Bridgehampton is only 3,000 people. So it comes down to a little, almost like a little village.
Yeah, after that accident, it was 2,999 because the lady is killed.
Yeah, and but everybody knew her. So Lyle was not the favorite son before this, After it, he was just anathema, and the natural assumption was that he was drunk because people saw him drink a lot of Dewar's in the restaurants and such, and that that he was, running a red light and didn't care that Elsie Kronk was driving her old Ford into the intersection.
We got to tell people that Elsie was not the only victim, because things happened to Lyle.
Yeah, he was trying to avoid her, but people don't care about that because of the dramatic way she died. He piled up on this monument I'm trying to describe, and he had a near-death experience, and he came out of it paraplegic from the L4 vertebrae down. So he was wound up in a wheelchair after a long coma and convalescence.
Oh my goodness.
So he's not the same Lyle. And when he wakes up in the hospital and starts to come around, he realizes that he has some kind of extrasensory power or clairvoyance or a sixth sense. And the first person he really picks up on it from is his nurse, who's in bustling around his room, not too friendly, not exactly warm and cuddly with Lyle. And as he's starting to get his bearings, he realizes that she thinks he was drunk and killed old Elsie. He can feel it, and he's like, uh-oh. And so he finally gets out of the hospital and starts his physical therapy, and he has a summer in his house where nobody really sees him. He's working out with his physical therapist and these things that he calls a torquemada that he hangs from that to build up the upper body. He also goes for stimulation for his legs to a special therapy place.
He believes, he hopes and believes that he's going to get better. But
Yeah,
he doesn't realize the extent to which he has become a sensitive. And therein lies the tale. All of this is to get you ready for the real major starting point, which
Oh my
is
gosh.
that he now is able to hear and see spirits.
I want to get this book so bad.
Okay.
Well,
It's-
and he's the last man on Earth, especially the last man in Bridgehampton, to drive by. He's being driven by his driver. Drive by a decrepit mansion that is rumored to be forever. It's been closed to anyone for 100 years. It's rumored to be haunted and rumored to be formerly a brothel. It's got no windows. The shutters are hanging off it. All the doors and windows are boarded up. And they're going by in a little mini traffic jam, so his ambulette slows down. And he's very tired at that point. And I think at that point you might be more open to hearing things. And that's when he starts to hear the whisperers. And they're female voices. They happen to be whispering to him in Italian. And you find out why later if you make it through. Of course, he doesn't speak Italian, but he's intrigued. And he wants to hear more, and the driver doesn't really understand any of this. It has nothing to do with driving an ambulance or an ambulette.
The driver understands one thing. Lyle keeps a wad of cash in his pocket.
Yeah.
And every time he asks the driver to do something, he hands him a 20 or a couple of 20s, and that the driver understands. But now we got the ghost. So now we have to get, because I remember I told you it's Long Island crime and ghosts, and we haven't gotten to the crime yet. But that's also interesting because Lyle has, from his first marriage, he has a daughter, and his daughter is a police detective. And the spirits tell Lyle that basically his daughter is going to die very soon. He sees a vision, and this guy, he's not a likable protagonist, but he is a likable protagonist. I think, Ken, you've done a very good job of balancing, and one of the things that makes him likable is, boy, he really loves this daughter, and she, in her way, loves him. She's bringing him food. She stops at her favorite Italian restaurant, I think it is, and brings him food, leaves it on the porch. She doesn't want to talk to him.
Eating too much.
That would be too much. But they do care about each other, and he has this premonition of her death. And that sets him to work at trying to unravel this mystery and make sure that his daughter is okay. And she is involved, as I said, as a police detective, dealing with a major, bad guy, druggy bad guy that she's investigating.
Yeah, that's her new mission. Her new case is a kind of a wannabe guy. Nobody knows how bad he is yet. So she's investigating him and watching his movements and reporting back on that. It's unknown how bad he is, or that he might possibly have an automatic rifle at his disposal, that sort of thing. He may just be a doofus and a loser, but they're watching his movements and those of his employees, because it's a sham limousine service that actually, especially in the summer, would deliver drugs and prostitutes to here and there and anywhere.
And anybody who's ever been around the Hamptons knows that's perfectly believable.
Mm.
So what we had, though, it's October, and so our evil guy is kind of scuffling around to make some money, and he's wants to impress his girlfriend, who was the top money maker for the organization, especially when she dressed as certain singers and dancers by wearing wigs that she has. Once she hooked up with this young guy who took over this little syndicate, she was like, okay, I'm not doing this anymore. So you're going to legitimize me, and you're going to do it by making money, buying me a house, and marrying me. So he's like, okay. So he's got his own pressure on him to succeed, but all he knows how to do is sell cocaine and other powders.
So the house in which the spirits are calling him is about to be torn down.
Uh-oh.
Lyle has to save the house, or at least he thinks he has to save the house, unravel the mystery, find out what danger his beloved daughter is in, and all of a sudden, the word gets out. People hear that he's been talking to ghosts.
Oh,
and
no.
things get really fun, okay? Because the news shows up. People who want to make money off of him, make news.
Yeah.
So this one company shows up, and they're trying to get like Entertainment Tonight, that kind of e-shows and stuff. And then the regular news trucks show up. And meanwhile, there are all these people who are into the supernatural, and, they're camping out on his lawn.
Oh.
And it's a four-ring circus. It's a four-ring circus.
Yeah.
And so Lyle manages to do the one thing that he does best under that kind of stress. He drinks.
I was just going to say that. I bet he drinks.
Yeah. And making the situation even wilder. But in the process, I have to tell you, Ken, you took him out to the Montauk and to some of my favorite places out there that I used to love to take a ride when we lived on Long Island. We'd ride out to the Hamptons, go on out to Montauk, sit, have dinner by the water, and then, spend a little time in the Hamptons, spend a little time and a lot of money in the Hamptons, and then go home.
I want to know, are the police prosecuting him
Why?
for the murder of this woman?
No, because there's really no proof.
Oh, of the old lady?
Yeah.
No, it's seen as an accident, but the rumor is throughout on the street is that Lyle. Oh, also he had his, if you want to call this a joke, he had no blood alcohol. There was copious blood to be tested. They tested the blood. He hadn't been drinking, but nobody believes that. The man on the street, the gal in the luncheonette who serves the coffee, everybody is like he's a drunk. And Lyle's defense, and this is the kind of the way he looks at the world too, is he says, I was not drunk at 5 o'clock that day. I was on my way to get drunk. Huge difference.
Huh?
It is.
In a way, that's true. But then they always hold something against him, like he was accelerating to get through a yellow light on his way to Montauk to go Ken to the Shagwong or something, where they don't hate him yet. The nice kind of posh places in Bridgehampton, they've had it with Lyle already. Right. So he's kind of, if you've seen bumper stickers on Long Island, when they refer to Montauk, they refer to it as the end. That's it's the end of the island. But it's also in his respect, he's kind of backed up to the end. There's nowhere else for him to go. Out there, he hasn't done any damage yet as a greedy lawyer, and he buys people a lot of drinks, and it's a more casual place. So that's his comfort zone out there. That's what he was trying to do when he was in the accident.
And later on in the book, when when everybody's chasing after him and trying to pick, he goes back to Montauk. Yeah. We don't want to give too much away in this book because it's a good book. It's a good read. So we're not going to tell you folks how it ends up. We're not going to tell you how, who gets redeemed or what. But there is one little twist in this that starts at the very beginning that I just had to share because I think it's so creative of you. When the first responders come to Elsie's car, Elsie has in the car with her. What is she carrying? Why is she in a hurry?
Yeah, she's on her way to her son's 50th birthday party.
Oh.
He's a fireman. He's a first responder. He's a respected and in-demand carpenter, so he works with his hands. He does honest work. He doesn't flip homes or stiff people. He's known throughout the community, and during the summer, the moneyed people are always after him to come and work on their homes. So everybody knows him. So he responds to
the car crash, not knowing who's in it.
He responds to it because he's a first responder. He gets there. He immediately recognizes his mother's car, which also he grew up with. It's been in the family for 30 or 40 years. And he looks in the car. He sees his mother is dying, and he sees his birthday cake that she baked.
Oh my gosh!
Feet all smashed next to him.
How horrible!
Yeah. So it really sets you up to get in that mood for this very sad kind of ghostly presence. And yet she is not the ghost.
No, Elsie, she gives up the ghost. She sees her son in one scene for one last moment, and he sees her. He freaks out and is taken away from the scene by two other first responders. But they do have that one moment.
Yeah.
In case you think, wow, this is a pretty complicated plot with a lot of very interesting sides to it, we just want to mention the priest from Malta. What? What? Whoa, a priest from where?
Yeah,
From
where?
a little island in the Mediterranean. So
Yeah.
what's this priest doing here?
Well, Lyle we needed a buddy story. He can't go around in a wheelchair investigating stuff, and he has no friends.
Oh,
But new people who he meets are intrigued by Lyle. They have not been ripped off by him. They haven't been sued, And Lyle, well, he talks to a priest friend and says, "Look, I think, uh-oh,
I think what? He's just trying to leave us in suspense.
Yeah,
See
there
that?
he is.
Aha!
my
Tried to hide.
my phone wanted to update," and I said no. So it's getting better and better. So he went to talk to a priest friend about these visions he's been having. This is an older priest who said, "Look, in our faith, which is Roman Catholic, we don't even have ghosts, Lyle. There are no ghosts. God takes care of people when they die. They're not hanging out looking for something to do for 100 years." However, there's a young priest from Malta who's visiting, and he is very spiritual, and he has had some experience in this realm. So why don't you meet him? So this older priest is trying to palm Lyle off on Father Matteo, who shows up in the rectory, and they don't hit it off well. It has to be that way. For instance, Lyle talks about he's going to a place where they are experimenting with stem cells to get his spinal injury rejuvenated. And the priest is like, whoa, you're killing babies for your, and so they have that debate, the stem cell debate. But they finally do hit it off in a weird way. And the priest says, he says, "Let me see, I want to see this house." Lyle, of course, has a picture on his phone. And Father Matteo says, "No, I want to see the house. Let's go."
We're not going to tell you what happens in the house, except to say that it is something. Well, I'll tell you how I managed to read it and enjoy it. I happen to like a glass of port every now and then, not Doors, but port. So I poured myself a couple fingers of port, and I sat there with Ghost Hampton, this book right here, Ghost Hampton, by our guest Ken McGorry, and I sat there reading and sipping as I went through that, because some scary stuff that goes on in that building and in its outbuilding. There's a kind of a converted stable garage behind it.
Yeah.
And we're not going to tell you, I'm not going to tell you that, and I'm not going to tell you Father Matteo's backstory. But boy, some scary, scary stuff. And then playing off that, the lightness of these television people who are all kind of wacky in their own way, and then these screaming fanatic fans who are, just want to be part of the action, and they're all, just loving Lyle.
It sounds like a great movie.
It is going to make a great movie. Yes, it is. And it is a good read. And it's a nice long read. It's actually probably maybe 30%, 40% longer than most of the books that people are buying now. But you know what? That's not a problem because it's a good read.
Right.
So you're getting more enjoyment for your money, folks.
Well, thank you. I fell in love with my characters, and I felt that if they're going to say so much of anything or take action in the story, we should know a little bit about them.
Yeah.
But there are quite a few of them, and then, of course, the more active they are, the more I tried to get you to know their each individual's backstory.
Okay, now just to get the message back into your heads, folks, what you want to buy, what you want to read. At this point, we're going to take a little break and show you a trailer
Yes.
for this wonderful book, Ghost Hampton. And then we'll be back and talk some more with Ken after the trailer.
Here you go, folks. Enjoy.
Hi, I'm Lyle Hall, and this is mostly about me and my various issues. Let's see. I used to drink too much. There's my well-documented trouble with women. My 2 ex-wives. Conflict with my daughter, Georgie. Georgie's a police detective, and I love her to death, but she doesn't believe it. And then there's my career as arguably Bridgehampton's greediest lawyer. People just don't want to forget that. But my fatal car accident, my Humvee versus old Elsie Cronk's Ford Ventura, that one takes the cake. But I emerged from coma a different man. I can now see and hear things no one else can, which conflates with my women trouble. Particularly Jewel. She's 12. And she dwells in a old Victorian that's supposed to be knocked down. I fight the demolition in court, despite the fact the whole town is against me. See, Jewel's been dead 100 years. And she knows when Georgie is going to die. But no one will believe me, especially not Georgie. So then, a circus comes to town, big media circus. And one gorgeous reporter who wants a piece of me. More women trouble. Ghost Hampton, a novel by Ken McGorry. Buy it online and visit ghosthampton.com.
Hey, welcome back, folks. And again, I urge you to read this book because it's a nice read. Crime, ghosts, humor, all kinds of good stuff in a great setting.
There's unfulfilled sexuality, too.
I'm sorry?
There's unfulfilled sexuality.
Yes. There's some
We gotta have a little bit of that in,
yeah.
A little bit of spice.
Yeah. Kind of fun. The sexuality is kind of fun in this book, and who's in love with whom?
It's fun and sad. He's told by his psychologist therapist that he has a libidinal pilot light lit to keep him going until such time. But
yeah. Well, so let's talk a little bit about ghosts, because Halloween is coming.
It is.
Which, of course, is being a ween. It's one of my favorite days of the year. And I love it when everybody says Halloween, and I go, hello back. But tell me, I have a theory about ghosts, writing ghost stories, and I was wondering if you had thought about anything like this. My theory was that ghosts had to have rules. Yeah, when you write a ghost story, you have to have in your mind, what are the rules? What can the ghost do, not do, and what also a ghost has to have motivation. So what does the ghost need? So I thought I'd ask you to talk a little bit about ghosts, and your ghosts in particular, the rules they follow,
Okay.
limits on them, and what are their needs?
Well, they can't do anything because they're so dead. So they can't do anything, but I believe that there is some kind of energy somewhere that it may hang out in a place where bad crimes were committed, and may hang out in the person of the victim or victims. In this house, there are actually multiple victims. So there is a little bit of energy there, and they use that to try to communicate. Not as poltergeists, they're not throwing furniture, but they get a load of Lyle, the least ever guy who is ever going to save a decrepit old building in the Hamptons, because he's all about tearing things down and selling the property. So they don't know that. They're from 100 years ago. They just know that this guy has, as our friend Stephen King would say, has the shining. He can sense stuff now. So
Right.
if you can sense it, they put their energy into trying to get a message to him. It's in Italian, so that means that he has to go and try to make friends with his ex-friend who's a researcher and knows everything and works in the local library. And that's one of the things that pushes him to this encounter with a kind of a frenemy, a guy he's known since and been friends with since grammar school, went to the Who concerts in college with him, and now they don't get along because the researcher guy is in that neck of the woods, is in charge of preservation, and Lyle is in charge of tearing down homes for money, and that's what
What does the ghosts want from Lyle?
I think they want their freedom.
Ah.
So I don't think they care about whether the house stands or not, but he's not a good ghost person yet. He just got into this, so he's like, oh, so you want me to save the house? And then he says, what's your name? And that's when Jewel, the ghost, says a name. And Lyle's like, so that's your name? And that's when Jewel, who is the spokesman for these spirits in this house, is summoned back in off the porch by the bad spirit, who we find out about at the very end, what he was like in life.
So these good spirits are struggling against the evil spirit that resides there, and the evil spirit has a lot more power.
Yeah, they're victims from 100 years ago, and they are continuing to exist in this setting where they have no power.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's alive anymore, nor have they been for 100 years. But it's the same equation. I'm in charge, you're not, you're staying here. One of the things that comes out is that some believe that once you're dead, there's no such thing as time. So as one of them said, while they're discussing this with the researcher guy, they're like, well, yeah, you don't buy new shoes when you're dead. And to that, Lyle says, new shoes? She doesn't even have feet. Because he's kind of just sort of floating there and footloose something when he sees her. So therefore, they can't progress, they can't really learn, they can't grow, they can't become better ghosts. They just have this one problem. And that is...
They're caught there by the evil that holds them.
Yeah.
And they want their freedom so that they can go wherever spirits would go.
Yeah. So it's the free us kind of thing. Lyle is not he's not attentive enough to understand that at first. So he's working to preserve the house that they want to get out of. So he's still doing.
One of the ironies is that he and besides, it's really the wrong building anyway, because it's the back building that's the more important.
But boy, did he get that wrong, huh?
Yeah, everything wrong.
But yeah, he gets everything wrong, and yet he is trying to do right.
Yeah.
And he is trying to find a way to do two right things. One, to protect his daughter, which is his great motivation. Mm-hmm. But secondly, to help these spirits, especially this young girl, this spirit that he perceives as a young girl named Jewel.
Yeah.
Which brings up a very interesting question that, usually when you read a book like Ghost Hampton, you don't expect to be thinking about too much about issues of morality and human values. You just expect to have a good read. But you really introduce what I think is a very interesting question. Can a person let's just say Lyle is a somewhat questionable character. Can a man of somewhat questionable character still be a force for good in the larger, more spiritual realm?
Yeah.
And was that
onto that?
Yeah, was that a question you had in your mind when you started writing, or did it?
Yeah, because I thought it'd be boring if it was Father Knows Best or Father Knows Ghost or something. And yes, guy, and I'm sorry you've been dead 100 years. What can I do to? He has all weird, different kinds of motivation, including he wants to be on TV with the femme fatale TV star lady who signed him to a contract. The real engine is he believes that his daughter is unlikely to survive the week because he's been shown her tombstone with their date of death etched in it. What else? There's an old saying, if you're going to steal from the best. And so there I stole from Dickens' Christmas Carol a few times. And I did admit to it when Lyle in the early going, he first reconnects with his old business partner. Lyle rolls in his chair into the office for the first time in a year, and his partner says, "Ebenezer," and he says, "Are you still paralyzed or something?" And Lyle says, "No, I just really love this new chair." Stuff like that. That's how they get along.
Yeah.
A signal.
There's a banter, and there's the sexuality you mentioned earlier, and the TV, this whole idea that our world is so dominated by being on TV.
Yeah, I am. And there are crowds of people in the background. Whenever the cameras start to roll, they're there chanting and banging on rubber tubs rhythmically, and there are T-shirts made.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, love the T-shirts. Hey, before we run out of time, and now I think we've given folks enough good reasons that they're going to hopefully rush to Amazon and order a copy of Ghost Hampton. And of course, if you want, you can get it on your Kindle, folks. Is it available in Nook version as well on mine?
It did, though. I don't think.
You don't think so? So go to Amazon and get it in print or in Kindle. A really good read. But you have another artistic side to you, and I wanted to make sure we mention it because we have a great friend of the show who's been on a few times. His name's Graham Sclater, and Graham, of course, is across the pond, the other side of the pond from you. And Graham also combines writing and music. So tell us a little bit about your music career.
Yeah, it's checkered, Ken, but thanks for asking. I started in grammar school in the church choir, and then in high school we formed a rock band. The Beatles were out, and Beatles were too good for us to copy, so we did Stones. Then in college, I started writing songs. It was the time of Crosby, Stills and Nash, Neil Young, James Taylor, the Elton John, who was like a artsy singer-songwriter, just playing piano. Stevens. So there was a ton of that. So we formed a band that did become successful in college and afterwards. We wound up playing 5 nights a week. When I left that group, we were playing 7 nights a week.
Now, where is this college? Because we don't want people to think that you were the only action in a little town just outside of Montauk. Where was it?
Well, on the other end, in the Bronx at Manhattan College, which is in Riverdale in the Bronx, Manhattan.
A little bigger venue.
Yes.
Yeah, it was great there, and it was a great time to form a band. So there was songwriting going on. We were writing songs. I started in college, and then afterwards we were trying to get a record deal. We figured that would be easy. I was with very talented singer guitarists, and we had a bass and drum section, rhythm section. And so I left in the 70s to pursue a solo career as a songwriter. That was very checkered, but the fellows stuck with me for recording and such, and for the occasional live showcase. They would rehearse with me and everything. So over the years, we amassed, 50-some songs that we learned, recorded. So anyway, of the good ones, they're on SoundCloud, and we did remaster a lot of the good older ones, and continue to do stuff now. So we have 2 songs baking in the oven in the studio. One is kind of a roadhouse country song that's fun and funny, sort of, and another is really a serious big ballad. That will, it looks like, will have the choir I'm in now singing in it on the chorus, which could be exciting.
So yeah, and I think we're gonna try, and I think we're gonna be able to, at the end of the show, to play one of those SoundClouds so that folks can hear that side of you, and maybe Graham, who usually catches the show, will be delighted to learn that he's not the only singer-writer that we know.
That's right.
Me and Stephen King.
Yeah, I love Stephen King. All I can say is thank you so much, Ken, for joining us. What a marvelous book. I had to ask you this question, though. How long did this book take you to write?
2.5 years, Monica.
Wow.
And then 1.5 years to edit and rewrite, and then 1 year of tortured attempts to get it out. One of the knocks on it was that Lyle was controversial. He was hard to pin down. But I felt that was actually his strong point.
Yeah, it's a plus.
I think Lyle is very real.
I've gotten, a lot of female readers don't hate him and tell me they love him and let's see him again.
See that?
He is a likable character. He's a likable character because, among other things, he is aware that he is a flawed character.
Yeah.
And he is trying to redeem himself, especially in his relationship, not only his relationship with his daughter and his frenemy, but even to a certain degree with his second wife. He is trying. He is trying to be a better man.
Well, that's good.
And yeah. And so that's kind of a nice aspect. I liked Lyle. And I really like Ghost Hampton.
Okay, where can we get the book?
Well,
So
the
Amazon.com is the easiest.
Amazon?
Amazon.com, you just put in Ghost Hampton,
Yes.
and it'll come up. Yeah, there you go. You got a good shot of it.
Yeah, really good
And-
shot.
And that's the best way to get it.
Okay, well, it sounds great. Well, Ken, thanks so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure, and I
Thank you.
I hope many people go out and get this book. What a great Halloween present it would be for somebody.
Yes, this is your Halloween treat for yourself, folks.
Yes. Woohoo. Okay, are we ready to, Ken, are we ready to listen to some music?
Okay, I'm always ready.
Okay, folks, we're going to say goodbye for tonight and leave you with Ken McGorry's music. Take care, all. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Some people line up for your autograph. And some people hear your name and start to laugh. At the numbers you'd produce with the needle full of juice. Well, here's a suggestion for your epitaph. I admit it, I did it. I admit it, yeah. I admit it, I did it. I admit it. Who's telling all as you ride around the world, dodging the accusations that they hurl? They ain't caught up with you yet in your supersonic jet. When they do, you can hide behind a pretty girl. Or tell 'em, I admit it, I did it. I admit it, yeah. I admit it, I did it. I admit it, yeah. Who's gonna take responsibility? Don't think it's you, and it surely won't be me. Preserve some dignity in a penitentiary, but we're all gonna come clean eventually. And tell 'em I did it, I did it.